For years, the Welsh Ambulance Service has been heavily criticised for failing to meet response time targets, and cases where an ambulance has taken too long to arrive all too often feature in the headlines. But from today, in what's been described as a radical overhaul, ambulance time targets will be scrapped for all but life-threatening calls. It's as part of a year-long trial. Opposition parties claim it's a dangerous experiment, but the Welsh Government insists getting rid of a discredited target will result in better care for patients. So how will the system work and what's the likely impact on patients? Our health correspondent Owain Clarke has been finding out.
Slip road on left to Western Avenue.
Getting from the centre of Cardiff to the west of the city quickly in the morning rush hour is tricky, even if you have blue lights and a siren. I've joined Jeff Lane, a paramedic in a rapid response car. The first call's just come in.
Yes, 202. This is a red 2 call for the 39-year-old epileptic male who's had a seizure.
I can't make it from the town centre to Ely in 8 minutes in traffic like this.
In the end, we're there in about 10 and meet Dennis.
My name's Jeff Dennis. What's going on? Okay.
I went to make a cup of tea. I went to fill the water up. Didn't realise there was really hot water in the kettle.
He's crouched on his living room floor with a wet tea towel over his bare shoulder.
It's hurting, you know.
What's that? You burn? Yeah, I'm not surprised, mate.
It happened because Dennis often has minor seizures in the morning. Dennis needs to go to hospital, and a conventional ambulance, which has already been sent, arrives in about 20 minutes. But this was a red 2 call, the second most urgent type, with a response time target of 8 minutes. And that's why the rapid response vehicle was sent first. But scrambling to hit the target, in this case, according to Jeff, wouldn't have made much difference.
I mean, he would have had an ambulance response probably within 20 minutes. And, you know, the outcome's still going to be the same for him.
Until now, 40% of all 999 calls that come in are categorised as Red 1 or Red 2, the most urgent types, needing an 8-minute response. The rest are designated green, with crews allowed anything up to half an hour to arrive. But from today, for a year, the 8-minute target will only apply to the most serious 10% of calls. Instances where a life is at risk, for example, where someone stopped breathing or has had a suspected heart attack or stroke. Less serious calls, around 65% of the total, will be amber calls, a new category. An ambulance will usually be sent, but it'll depend on individual circumstances how quickly. The rest of the calls, around a quarter, will be designated green, and patients will be urged to contact their GPs, for example, or call NHS Direct for advice. In all cases, performance will be measured not so much on speed, but on the results for patients and their experiences.
The address of the emergency.
Another change will happen in the ambulance control room when a 999 call comes in. Andrew Jenkins, who's Deputy Clinical Director of the Welsh Ambulance Service, says a little bit of extra time can make a big difference.
What it does, it allows us to identify very early on in the process which is the time critical, the life-threatening calls that we need to respond to, but then it gives our CCC, our Clinical Contact Centre staff, the opportunity to ask further questions to identify the clinical need of that patient and then the most appropriate response.
But the changes are controversial, a dangerous experiment according to Plaid Cymru, a blatant attempt to move the goalposts, say the Tories. So is this an attempt by the Welsh Government in the run-up to an election to dodge criticism? Not so, says the Deputy Health Minister, Vaughan Gething.
Not at all. In fact, making this announcement now guarantees a huge amount of scrutiny over the reasons for doing it, the evidence we have for doing this. This isn't about political convenience. Frankly, it would be much more convenient for me if we saw a continued improvement and people stopped talking about ambulance response times.
But you know that won't happen.
But if the evidence that we have, and all of us have seen over a long period of time, that the old system does not work in the best interest of patients, how could we carry on with that system?
Back in the rapid response car, it's mid-morning and we're parked by a fire station in the east of Cardiff. That's because the ambulance service's computer predicts the next call could come from around here. While we wait, Jeff Lane, the paramedic, reflects on how things have changed in the 30 years since he first joined the ambulance service.
Years ago, people would very rarely ring you unless it was life-threatening, but they're a lot more willing these days to ring you up for a cut finger or a headache.
We barely have time to finish the conversation before the next call comes in.
992, 90-year-old male, consciously breathing with chest pains, over.
The computer was right. It's just around the corner, and we're there in seconds.
Has it been coming and going? Has it been constant?
It comes and goes, you know.
It comes and goes.
A gentleman in his 90s has been suffering from chest pains, and once again a conventional ambulance follows in about a quarter of an hour.
Yeah, that's our bread and butter really, is the ambulance service, the ageing population. And he's obviously got a chest infection going on. He's been unwell for 2 days. Once again, his son had been trying to get hold of the GP for a couple of hours. Default position, 999 for the ambulance service. The gentleman was in some distress. He had the pain, he was difficult to breathe in. But getting there in 8 minutes, would it have made a difference to how he was treated? No.
Critics will be alarmed that perhaps under the new system, the rapid response car may not have been sent to this patient, and he may have had to wait a bit longer in pain for the ambulance to arrive. But supporters claim the changes could help free up precious resources in case a more serious call happened at the same time in the same area. The new targets, they say, will deliver better care overall. Who's right? Well, this time next year we'll know.